What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, the other day I did the most likely players to break out in the 2020 season for the Detroit Lions. And while going over the roster, I was going through looking, and I realized that there are a lot of players on the Detroit Lions roster that are really good players that, grade highly. They put up good stats every single year that they've played in the NFL, played for Detroit, and they just don't get the respect they deserve. If you look at any top 10 lists, you're probably not going to find many of these players on there. And just because they play for the Lions, I think is the only reason that they're not. They aren't winning games, and I think that really, really hurts their reputation as far as fans go. And even big companies like ESPN and NFL Network don't rank these players highly, even though if you look at the stats, if you do a deep dive, they absolutely should. Now, before we get into it, I have a couple things that I want to say. First off, sorry about yesterday. I had a lot of schoolwork to do. School's about to finish up really soon, so I had a lot of work to do yesterday, and I only was able to put out a quick video on Taylor Decker, and I wasn't able to put links in the description. The editing wasn't fantastic, and I want to apologize for that because that's not the kind of quality that I want to put out. But it is what it is. It's a new day, and we're moving on. But one more thing, if you are new to the channel and are enjoying this type of content, consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with a Lions or an NFL fan that you think would enjoy this type of content, whether it be my record prediction series that I will get back to, or just, these one-off videos, the underrated, the most likely to break out, or any other type of video like that. Just let me know in the comments, subscribe to the channel, like the videos, share it with a Lions fan. That makes my day. I appreciate everybody that helps me out. Thank you all so very much. But with that being said, let's get into what everybody came for, the 4 most underrated players on the Detroit Lions roster. Now, before I do get into it, just one more thing, this is not in any particular order. So I'm not ranking them 4 to 1 or anything like that, no particular order. But with that being said, let's get into the first player. Now, this player is arguably the most underrated player in the NFL, and that is our quarterback, number 9, Matthew Stafford. Now, if you look at any quarterback list, if you ask any average NFL fan, they're going to tell you that Matthew Stafford is okay. They're going to tell you that he's probably in the top 15. He's not really an elite quarterback. He's not really that good. He hasn't won anything. He should have won a playoff game by now. He's just not good enough to elevate people, blah, blah, blah. And I'm here to tell you that that is not true. Now, Matthew Stafford, not only is he the youngest player to pass for 40,000 passing yards in NFL history, he's also one of only 8 players to ever pass for 5,000 yards in a single season. And, you might say, okay, that's great, but what about right now? Well, last year, you're looking at his quarterback rating. His QBR versus man coverage ranked 5th in the NFL. His QBR versus zone coverage ranked 3rd in the NFL. And his QBR versus the blitz ranked 4th in the NFL. If you look at that, all top 5 stats in quarterback rating. And I know people look at quarterback rating a lot and say that that is a big factor for how they rank quarterbacks. Well, Matthew Stafford's top 5 in everything that matters except for red zone. And, that is just fantastic for him. Obviously, if you're ranking top 5, you're doing something right in the NFL. He was on pace for 5,000 yards again last season before he was injured. People say he's injury prone, which is ridiculous. I'll say in the beginning of his career, he had some injury troubles. And then he played for, 8 or 9 seasons straight without missing a single snap for the Detroit Lions. And then last year, he had a back problem that took him out for a couple of games. And now everybody's going to say he's injury prone again. That's not true. And, he has put up elite stats since he's been in Detroit. He's put up 5,000 yards one season. The next season, I think he was only 40 yards away from 5,000 yards again. He was on pace for 5,000 yards last season. Realistically, if you look at his career, he could have 3 years with 5,000 yards passing. Obviously, he's made the playoffs a few times and was not able to win, which is not on him because the roster around him was not equipped to make a good playoff run. He had no running game in his career. I want to say he's 12-4 12-2 when he has a 100-yard rusher. So he's won 12 games and lost 2. That's pretty good. And Matthew Stafford he's an elite quarterback that doesn't get credit anytime, anywhere. A lot of people think he's overrated, which is ridiculous because I think they just look at Matthew Stafford and say, he hasn't won a playoff game in 11 years. He's bad. He's trash. He can't win games, and that just isn't true. I get it. I get that people don't do research. I get that people look at base stats and they hear things online and they hear things on on TV, and they just don't They don't believe in Matthew Stafford. But I mean, I just don't know what else to say. He's a very good quarterback. He was worth the #1 pick. There's nobody I would rather have the Lions take in that draft. Matthew Stafford is the only guy that was right for the Lions, and he is continuing to prove that today. Now, one more thing on Matthew Stafford. I think one of the bigger contributing factors is that he has no social media presence. He doesn't have a Twitter account, doesn't have an Instagram account, doesn't have, any social media, does not talk trash off the field, does not, make a lot of noise. And I don't even think he has a Twitter account. I think Kelly Stafford does all that for him and kind of keeps him informed on some of that stuff. But I think that's a big reason is people don't hear from him, people forget about him, and they're like, oh, Matthew Stafford, pretty average, put him at 15. But he should be in the top 5. He should be in the top 10, if not top 5, this year and last year, and for most of his career. But that's enough on Matthew Stafford. I'm sure every Lions fan has heard about that. But looking at another player, Tracy Walker, a safety that we drafted out of Louisiana Lafayette in the 3rd round a few years ago, is a very underrated safety, arguably one of the most in the league. Now, I'm not saying he's the best. I still think there are better safeties like Earl Thomas. I think Kevin Byard is a very good safety. Minkah Fitzpatrick is amazing. There are guys that are in the NFL that are definitely better than Tracy Walker. But Tracy Walker only has 1 year of starting so far, going into his 3rd year in the NFL this next season. He's only started 1, and he's obviously only played in 2. And in those 2 seasons, his QBR in 2018 was 89.8. That was one of the best in the NFL. And granted, he was only a role player, but obviously if you're graded that highly, you have to be doing something right. He had 2 interceptions. One of them didn't count because of a poor call on Quandre Diggs, but he did have one that counted against the Panthers in his rookie season. And then in his first full year starting, he had a 73.5 grade, which is not horrible by any means. That is still very, very good quality. As far as tackles, he ranked 6th. Targets, he had 48 targets, which was ranked 9th in the NFL. And he had 32 receptions allowed, which ranked 10th in the NFL. Now, a lot of those are top 10 stats, and he's not a top 10 safety ranking by most people. Now, I understand that he's young. He hasn't proven anything yet, and I would expect next season he'll take another huge step forward, with a full year under his belt, a full year of just experience. I think that he's going to take another step forward and prove a lot of people wrong. I wouldn't be surprised next year if he's in the Pro Bowl, and I would not be surprised if he was an All-Pro next season. I would not be surprised if he had 3 interceptions and a couple forced fumbles and a couple fumble recoveries. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a Minkah Fitzpatrick-like season because he has the size, the speed, the length, the intelligence. He is a fantastic safety, has all the tools in the toolbox, and I think that he's going to be a very successful safety in the NFL moving forward, and has proven that he can do some very good things for the Lions in the past. So, moving on to the 3rd player, Frank Ragnow. Now, this was the 20th overall pick in the 2018 draft by the Detroit Lions, and when he was selected, the network cut to commercial, so nobody got to see highlights. Nobody got to hear anybody talk about Frank Ragnow, and I think that a lot of people don't look at offensive linemen. A lot of people like the flashy guys, the running backs, the wide receivers, the quarterbacks, the corners, the linebackers, the safeties, even the defensive linemen. But nobody looks at offensive linemen because they don't put up stats. Nobody likes to look at offensive line stuff, and I think that unless you're a Quentin Nelson, who has a highlight block or, is absolutely devastating in the run game or hasn't given up a sack in whatever, like Joe Thomas, it's hard to get respect as an offensive lineman, but he absolutely deserves it. Now, in his rookie season, playing out of position at the left guard position, he played in 1,076 snaps for the Lions, committed 6 penalties, and gave up 4 sacks, which as a rookie, I would not say is horrible. 4 sacks given up in 16 games, that's once every, 4 games that he gave up a sack. That's not horrible for out of position and his first season in the NFL. And then in his 2nd year, he moved to center and was given a 74.9 grade by Pro Football Focus, played in 996 snaps, committed 5 penalties, and gave up only 2 sacks. Now, that's an improvement, obviously, but that's only his first year starting at center in the NFL. Again, just like Tracy Walker, his first real season starting at his true position, and he only gave up 2 sacks and committed 5 penalties. That is a very good season. And he is one of the better centers in the NFL right now, and he's one of the younger centers in the NFL, only going into his 3rd season as a Detroit Lion. Now, I mean, there's not a lot to say, obviously, because there's not a lot of stats, but Frank Ragnow is one of the most underrated offensive linemen in the league and definitely one of the more underrated centers. Now, looking at the last player, this guy came in last season, late in the season, graded out higher than Darius Slay in some games, had 2 interceptions, which was one of the most on the team. And of course, I'm talking about the 5th-round pick from Penn State, Imani Oruwariye. So, let's look at Imani. In his first season, he had a 71.4 grade from Pro Football Focus. He played in 9 games, had 2 interceptions, 3 passes defended, and 19 tackles. Now, that is very good for a rookie, right? 2 interceptions from your rookie cornerback, that's pretty good. But he only played in half the games. He played in 9 games out of the 16. He didn't even play in a full season, and just like Desmond Trufant having 4 interceptions in 9 games, if they played in a full season, he probably would have had 4 interceptions if you just were to double it. Obviously, they're not 18 games in a season, but that's pretty close. I would expect if he played in the full season, I would say he would have 3 to 4 interceptions. That's not crazy. Just like Desmond Trufant, if he played in the whole season, he might have had 6 or 7 interceptions. I mean, but this obviously isn't about Desmond Trufant, it's about Imani. But Imani is the most underrated cornerback on the Lions right now because he gets buried under Okudah and Trufant and even Justin Coleman when he was arguably the most productive cornerback on our roster last year. I know we drafted Jeffrey Okudah to come in and take that cornerback 1, and we brought in Trufant to be that cornerback 2, but don't be surprised if Imani leads the cornerback room in interceptions or is at least tied next year, because I think that they're going to rotate those 3 guys around a lot, keep everybody fresh, keep everybody good to go, keep everybody healthy. And I would not be surprised if Imani comes up with 2 or 3 interceptions next year. I would not be surprised if he outperforms Jeffrey Okudah. I would not even be surprised if he outperforms Desmond Trufant. He is the most talented cornerback, not the most talented on the roster, but he is arguably one of the more talented rookie cornerbacks that came out of the class last year. And I think that he's going to take another step forward. Again, season under his belt now, has that experience, didn't even play in a full season and had 2 interceptions. And I think that these 4 players are going to, if we start winning games, are going to start getting recognition, and they're going to start, making names for themselves in the NFL. Stafford should already be up there in the top 10 list. He should be arguably top 5, if not in the top 10, but he's not. Tracy Walker should be in the 15 top safeties, and he's not. Rarely do you see him in the top 15. Frank Ragnow, if you look at all the NFC North, best teams or whatever, if you combine all of them, Frank Ragnow is never in that, even though he's probably the best center in the North right now. And, Imani just isn't talked about because he plays for the Lions. I mean, if you look at the stats, he was one of the most productive cornerbacks in the NFL when he was playing. So that is my opinion. If you can think of anybody else on the roster that you think is underrated, that deserves more recognition and just doesn't get it for one reason or another, obviously leave it in the comments below or DM me on Instagram. The link will be in the description this time, I promise, or you can just go to the About section on my YouTube channel and that'll be there too. But with that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. Have an absolutely fantastic day. If there is more Lions news before tomorrow, I will obviously make a video letting everybody know. But if there is not, that is all I have for you guys today. Have an absolutely fantastic day. I appreciate everybody that watches the video. Thank y'all so very much, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.